Hello everyone and welcome back to another aquatic adventure. I'm Erin with Wave Foundation at Newport Aquarium, and we are doing another STEM activity created with the STEM cards in partnership with Greater Cincinnati STEM Collaborative. But today, we not only get to put on our scientist caps, today we are gonna be shark scientists. One of my favorite types. So, we have some materials that you're gonna need to gather for this activity. So I'm gonna run through those quickly so that you can gather those up. So we do need a toilet paper roll or a paper towel tube. I have two here to show you different levels, but you only need one. And then you will need 3 pennies or something that has just a little bit of weight to it to attach to your toilet paper tube. And we're gonna do that with some tape. So if you guys have a little bit of tape. Now, this tube is gonna act as our shark today. And so I personally figured if it's gonna be a shark, it needs to look like a shark. So I drew my shark on there. Now, a word to the wise, I only had washable markers. My guess is this will come off as I put it in our water today. So if you have a Sharpie or something permanent, that may work better. But feel free to decorate your shark tube however you would like. Then we also will need 1 balloon and a little bit of vegetable oil. You're gonna need about 1/3 of a cup, and you need some way to put the oil in your balloon. I have 2 suggestions for you. One, definitely find an adult to help you with this. And you can use a funnel. That's really easy if you have one. If you don't have a funnel, which I didn't, I had an old soda bottle, and so I put the vegetable oil into the soda bottle because it had a narrower top, and then I simply put the balloon over it and tipped the oil in. And that actually worked really, really easily to get the oil in here. So a balloon with about 1/3 of a cup of vegetable oil in it will be what we need. And then something to act as our ocean and our big body of water. I'm using fresh water today. Part of this experiment, you could try other different modes of doing it, would be to use salt water. So you could add salt to this in a different version of this experiment. So you've got your materials all ready to go. Let's get started. What we're talking about today with sharks is called buoyancy. Now, buoyancy is how well something floats in water. So if something is not buoyant, like a penny, it's gonna sink straight to the bottom. And that is something that is not buoyant. It is heavier than the water, so it sinks straight to the bottom. Something lighter that is very buoyant is going to float to the surface. We will use my toilet paper tube without pennies on it as an example. That is gonna float on the surface. As it gets wet, it's gonna sink. But when it's not wet, it is able to float because it is very buoyant. And then something that's neutrally buoyant would be able to just float right in the middle of the water because it's the same density as the water. So how are they buoyant? Do they sink to the bottom? No. Do they float right on the surface? Not so much. So today we're gonna experiment with how are they able to be buoyant. Now we're gonna start by talking about fish. And generally, other small fish like bass or bluegill, they have what's called a swim bladder or an air bladder. And it's very much like a balloon. Theirs is filled with air. When it's full, they are able to float on the surface. This one's already filled with air. And so when it's full of air, they float really, really well. And then if they let out that air, those fish would be able to sink. Now our question today is whether sharks have the same ability to move their buoyancy. They don't have a swim bladder or an air bladder that's filled with air, so we want to think about what substance might help them to be buoyant. So today we are testing vegetable oil or any other kind of oil. We are seeing if they have something oily that helps them to float. So we're going to take our shark. Our toilet paper tube is our shark. We've drawn on it and we have attached the weights. The weights are there because sharks already have mass. They have weight. They have muscle, they have cartilage for their skeleton. So we need to add a little bit of weight to our toilet paper tube to make our shark a little bit more realistic. Let's see what happens if there was nothing to help this shark be buoyant. It sinks pretty much straight to the bottom. So we need something to help this shark be buoyant. And that comes in the form of our balloon. So what you're gonna do is take your balloon and we're gonna put it inside of our toilet paper tube. This is gonna act as some of their organs or other things like that, and we're gonna see what might happen if any of their organs were oily to help them float. Now, After I talk about this, I want you to pause the video because I want you to make your predictions before I show you what happens with my shark. So pause it now, make your predictions about what will happen when you put this oily balloon inside of your shark and then drop it in the water. Now, hopefully you have made some predictions and are gonna guess what is gonna happen now that we have our oil-filled balloon inside of our shark. So I'm gonna put it in my water body here, and I want you all to do the same and see if your predictions were right. So my shark, at least, is staying pretty close to the surface. It's definitely able to bounce around a little bit. And for mine, if you notice, it's on a bit of an angle, and that is because on one end, I have a bit more oil. The balloon is more full on one side than the other. And so the side that is more full is this side, where it's staying a little higher in the water. The side where it's less full is over here. So we can see because of that oil, if it's got more oil or less oil, the shark is staying more buoyant up towards the surface or less buoyant, being down a little bit farther in the water. So what we know actually about sharks is that they do in fact have an oily organ inside their body that helps them to be buoyant like this, and that is their liver. They have a very oily liver that helps them to remain in the middle of the water column where they want to be. Now, I do suggest that we try this with a few other substances. We went straight to oil today, but maybe you could try it with water, fill the balloon with water, and see what that would cause our sharks to do in their buoyancy. Maybe try it with juice. That's maybe a little different. So try filling that balloon or that oily liver with something other than oil and see how that would affect a shark's buoyancy. But we do know that sharks have an oily liver that is something that helps them to remain buoyant in the water. So I hope you all enjoyed our time as shark scientists today. Continue being curious and enjoy these activities. Have a good one.